The shape of the observable universe is a sphere, which makes sense because we are in the center of the universe, you may say. To put things in perspective, the observable universe is estimated to contain 200 billion to 2 trillion galaxies, and each galaxy contains billions of stars. The biggest star that we know is 1700 larger than our Sun. Compared to Earth, the Sun is 109 times wider. Earth is about 3.5 million times larger than a human, and an average human body contains around 30 trillion cells. An average human cell contains 100 trillion atoms. Now take a minute and do the math of how many atoms are in the known universe. All good? Great. If your result is between 10 quadrillion vigintillion and 100,000 quadrillion vigintillion atoms, then you're right. Now, the really fascinating thing is that all these colossal structures and systems of the universe are actually driven by subatomic details like elementary particles interaction. It's the little things that are vital. Little things make big things happen, said John Wooden, a famous basketball coach. So what's that got to do with UX? Let's find out. So now we know how many atoms are in the observable universe, a totally useless information. But as I mentioned, what is interesting is that everything, from the largest galaxies down to the little quark, function through systems. Nature is a circular, balanced system that has no waste. It's all part of a circular pool. The day that humans came along and started using finite resources in excess and creating harmful processes, creating excess heat and compounds that cannot be recovered by nature, was a Tuesday. No, really, it was a Tuesday on 29th of December 1970 when for the first time in history human consumption exceeded the amount nature can regenerate in a year. In 2019, that day was on July 29th. That means that at this pace, in 30-40 years, we will consume 1 year resources in 1 day. You can say that humanity is using a linear, wasteful process. Let's call it waterfall. In business, like I mentioned in a previous video about the UX in the new decade, a solution to cut waste is using a non-linear process, a lean approach. Such a solution is circular economy, which is an economic system of closed loops in which materials, components, and products lose their value as little as possible. Renewable energy sources are used, and systems thinking is at the core. Please consider subscribing to the channel and share the video if you liked it. It helps with all the YouTube algorithm stuff. And that leads us to circular design, which according to the Circular Design Guide created by IDEO with Ellen MacArthur Foundation, is a mindset that detaches us from traditional manufacturing, which is wasteful because it focuses exclusively on the end users and helps us look much wider to consider everyone who extracts, builds, uses, or disposes things. Transposing that to our day-to-day work as product designers, that means that we need to create closed feedback loops, considering a wider network of stakeholders to unlock value at every stage of the process. So behind each product that we use, there is a manufacturing or a developing system. In software development, we have C-levels, marketing, sales, operations, front-end, back-end, QA, DevOps, UX, users. They are all part of the system, which consists in several smaller systems, and so on. From a designer's perspective, thinking only of users or trying to please certain stakeholders leads to a waste of ideas, of time, of resources, and leads to blinded solutions. looking at the big picture and tailor a system that includes in the feedback loops people from multiple disciplines will help you create more qualitative and sustainable solutions, not only for the user but also for the company workflow and strategy. And if you add in the circular economy, for the environment as well. James Clear talks in his book Atomic Habits about the habit loops, which, no coincidence, is a repeating circular system that we automatically use to create experiences. The brain is continually scanning the environment, predicting what will happen next, trying out different responses, and learning from the result. The habit loop is split into phases. The problem phase with cue and craving, and the solution phase with response and reward. To summarize, cue is a bit of information that predicts a reward, craving is the motivation to obtain it, response is the action that we take, and reward is the achieved goal. If the reward is satisfying, then we repeat that behavior until it becomes a habit. Of course, with each loop we can improve the solution phase. So this may be a rational explanation why feedback loops work better than long-lasting linear processes. Because our brain is set by default to streamline each task. It is wired to conserve energy whenever possible. A basic physics principle that allowed scientists to understand how the universe works is that the path followed between any 2 points will always be the path requiring the least energy. In other words, our real motivation in life is to be lazy and to do only what's convenient. You don't agree? Let's look at user experience. Its essence is to eliminate useless frictions when using a product. Why? Because frictions are obstacles for people to achieve their goals. Today we say, Alexa, play some rock music. This eliminated the friction of having to pull out your phone, to plug it in the audio system, to search for rock music and to tap on play. The phone eliminated the friction of having to go to the music store and buy a CD, and so on. You may say at this point that UX encourages laziness, but actually, without these automations, evolution would not have been possible. But it's up to us if we see this brain system as a superpower that we have to do good, or we see it as a weakness and take advantage of others and do bad things. Now, in theory, it all sounds great, but how can we actually apply circular design in our day-to-day work in a variety of contexts and timings? I will exemplify with a well-known concept in the business world: minimal viable product. MVP is the simplest possible product that can be useful and valuable for the intended users. You are probably familiar with this graphic. MVP's biggest focus is on value, in this case, transportation. The product needs to take the user from A to B. In the first row, you do not have a useful product until step 4. But in the second row, at each step of the process, you have a product that can take the user from A to B. You will probably won't ride a skateboard from Paris to Barcelona, but for getting to work and back, it's reasonable. The primary goal of a minimal viable product is not to build something, but instead to learn something. That is why startups use this concept, making sure that their idea brings value to a pool of users and fits to market. Even though MVPs don't require as much resources and time as building the real thing, if the users don't see value in the idea, then startups may not have the sufficient funds to continue exploring. So they have a low risk tolerance, as opposed to larger companies that, beside concerns about the reputation and the brand, if they fail, they do have the resources and the time to invest further, so they have a high risk tolerance. But MVP is still a product. It still requires development or manufacturing. Like I said, it requires some available resources that startups may not have in the beginning. So a solution can be creating smaller feedback loops for validation before investing in the implementation. Such a prototype doesn't need to be a functional product, but just to simulate the real thing. It can showcase 3 or 4 core use cases that can be based on assumptions, which you test and learn from, and allow you to move forward into execution with a viable concept. For a digital product using tools like Figma, InVision, Adobe XD to name a few, you can now bring these prototypes very close to a real product simulation in terms of experience. If you're using Waze to go to work, for example, after you enter the destination, the app will recommend you a number of routes to take. You will choose one, usually the fastest. But during the drive, sometimes maybe you've noticed that the app notifies you that it found the fastest route that can help you avoid traffic jams or other events on the road. So for once, the fastest route changed because of some unpredictable events. So it may save you some time and gas. But looking at the bigger picture, if you take your bike to work, it will save you gas and time because you won't get stuck in traffic jams and it's easier to park. It will improve your health and will have no negative impact on the environment. So when you think of a process, the fastest way to achieve a goal doesn't necessarily need to be a straight line or contain the most obvious choices or the most comfortable ones. You need to choose those steps that can bring multi-layered value. If you're an early stage startup, you're probably thinking of building an MVP. But what if you exclude the development and build a prototype? What if you exclude the prototype and draw a concept to validate with potential customers? What if you exclude the concept and validate your idea through a survey or other research methods? No matter the context you're in, you should always choose the fastest path to get valuable feedback. Creating a system of closed feedback loops can help you be more flexible and dynamic when it comes to validation or even pivoting. Vision, value, ROI, impact, objectives, goals, deadlines, milestones, planning, sprints, demo, colors, fonts, smaller, bigger. Do some UX for this button. I find it hard to believe that you think of all these things daily or all at once. Sometimes with all these buzzwords, opinions and requirements, it's getting hard to concentrate to see things clearly, so you get stressed and start scrolling on social media. And then you retire in your creative box to think outside the box. This is a pitfall that most of us get stuck in these days. It leads to a lack of motivation and sometimes to finger pointing. When it comes to consciousness, our brain is not multitasking. We can consciously do a single task at a time. When it comes to unconsciousness, of course, we can drive a car, drink coffee, listen to the radio, hit the brakes and spilling the coffee on our pants, all in the same time. When working on a certain task and you're not sure about its impact or value, or you don't understand its complexity, make sure that you have a system of closed feedback loops with whomever you consider necessary. It can be with various stakeholders, developers, designers, or users. The secret is to break the task into smaller, tangible, and easy to execute actions that can lead you to obtain small wins. Unlocking yourself as soon as possible and take the fastest route to validate your understanding will keep your motivation up. The good news is that the sweet spot of motivation is at 50-50 split between success and failure. In other words, we don't always have to be right. Of course, all of these things that I've talked about in this video are not something that we can achieve overnight. So goals are important because they give us a direction. But without the granular work that we may like or struggle with sometimes, they can be achieved. Strive to have even a small percentage of progress each day because the most effective form of motivation is progress. If today we have plus 1% progress than yesterday and tomorrow we will have plus 1% progress than today, the line will grow exponentially in time. I know I'm not the best designer, researcher, analyst or technical person, but I'm always making sure that I'm surrounded by people that can help me understand certain contexts. In every business, cross-department collaboration is vital. It's a system that involves people from different areas of expertise. a pool rich with perspectives and ideas. Even though sometimes may seem overwhelming, the circular design mindset actually helps us narrow down complexity to a level that seems effortless, strategically eliminating waste from our work. It doesn't exclude the need to be thinkers on our own terms, but it helps with unblocking ourselves to constantly validate our work and to keep track with the path of success. So yeah, the universe, the nature, everything that surrounds us, our society, our living, our breathing, everything works through systems. So it's not something that we invent, it's something that we discover every day. If you like this video and want to see more, you know what to do. Keep learning and always remember that UX rocks. Thanks for watching.